All right. Hello and welcome to the Grit Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast. This is your host, Bryce Moose, otherwise known as the commissioner and the great team leader of the Area 51 Invaders. I do sadly have to change up the intro a little bit, as I'm no longer the only two-timer. Congratulations to Jonah. It was a great season. He definitely deserved to win, and happy for him. That being said, it's time to transition to the 2024 or 2025 season. A lot of changes coming up. We got a rookie draft here in a few months. The college football season isn't even technically over yet, but it is time to move forward. Um, Wanted to jump on here today. It's been a long time since we've had some sort of a discussion or some sort of a kind of state of the union. It's kind of my goal on here. I know that people have been in and out of the chat, and a lot of the discussion is during work hours, so you may have missed some important information. So I want to make sure that everybody has the info that they need, as well as their minds in the right place to make the right decisions with trading. I've already sent out a couple offers to some people. Trying to improve my team, and I want you guys to feel confident doing the same, just knowing obviously about the changes and how the league is kind of transitioning a little bit. So with that said, let's jump into it. First topic today is the move to Superflex. Before we ever started this dynasty, Superflex was a conversation, and we decided to not do it because the shift from a redraft keeper league to a dynasty league was already too much to worry about for a lot of people. Obviously, with the state of everything shifting, a lot of people had never played in two QB leagues. It was going to be a big decision, and it was going to take some adjustment. And we saw that, right? Like, we've seen people think they know what they do, or think they know what they're doing in dynasty, and then completely ruin their team for a few years. Trying to win too much can lead to you losing a whole lot. And then trying to tank and then not doing it correctly can lead to this perpetual coming in 7th, 8th, 6th place with no real chance to ever win and no real chance to get a top pick. The reason Superflex is important is because in Dynasty, in a league where we have our teams for 365 days of the year, it's important that all of the positions have value. And which is why the most popular dynasty leagues are start 10 Superflex leagues. So after kicking it back and forth for a little bit and kind of gauging people's interest, what I started to realize is that a lot of people were more open to this than I thought of kind of making the switch. I don't think anybody really wants to redraft other than maybe Xander, but I mean, really, like, we like our teams. I'm proud of the team I've built. I want to try winning with my team. And I know a lot of people are the same. It's more fun to make an adjustment and then go from there. But, we got to do something to increase the, state of the union for the team, like for our league. Our dynasty has just kind of been, it's felt very complacent, very stale lately. I'm not sure if you guys have felt the same, but it's kind of the same situation where it's once you get a superstar on your team, there's no real incentive to ever trade them, right? Like, there's no real, hey, I'll offer you 5 firsts for this player, right? So, like, I don't know, like, we'll take Justin Jefferson for example, but if I was to send Austin 5 firsts, it's not even a snap except for him because he's like, what are those picks going to really be? Like, okay, yeah, I get 5 guys who can get 10 to 15 points every week, but I have a player right now who is going to average 18 for a season with the upside of a 30-point week. And plus, he's Justin Jefferson's 25 years old, so like there's no real incentive to ever sell him. Like, sure, you can make an offer that makes sense, especially if his team had injuries or something like that, but that's few and far between. And I think it it just kind of creates this, like, well, once you have a guy, that's kind of the end of it. Dynasty should be more about every player in the league is attainable. Whether you're a super fan of that player, there should be offers to be made that can attain everybody, right? Like, if you want to mortgage your future because you really like Kenneth Walker, there should be no barrier of entry to go and get that player. So the move to Superflex allows us to have quarterbacks have equal value or more value, really, than the skill position players. What does Superflex mean? Well, let me put it very clearly. The last flex spot, so we had 3 flexes last 2 years, I should say. That third flex spot will now be a super flex position, which is basically the exact same thing as a flex, except you can play quarterbacks in that spot. You might say, well, okay, well, I don't really have two great quarterbacks. I'll just play another receiver there. It doesn't really change much for me. Well, it should. Quarterbacks on a week-to-week basis are going to score way more points than an average wide receiver performance. And keep in mind, you're already starting two running backs and two receivers in your guaranteed spots, plus two flexes for your other skill position players. The quarterback's floor is so important, right? Like a bad game from Tua, where he plays 4 quarters, is probably still closer to 20. And the best game that a Cortland Sutton or a Garrett Wilson is going to have is going to be somewhere in that 20 to 22 range, unless they score multiple touchdowns. The quarterback's performance is always more important because, number one, they're less likely to get injured. They play longer, and it's more predictable on a week-to-week basis. You don't have that, Garrett Wilson goes 3 for 38 kind of random game that loses you a week. So the goal now in Superflex is to have multiple good quarterbacks. So what does this really mean for you? Well, if you're a team like Alec, who has Joe Burrow and some questionable, well, I guess he has Brock Purdy, but he has some questionable quarterbacks other than that. It's up to him to say, okay, well, maybe I want to sell Joe Burrow, get another middle-of-the-road quarterback, and really improve the rest of my team. The top quarterbacks now should be the most valued assets in Dynasty. Like, we already know how many points Josh Allen can score week to week, but now his value is actually increased because everyone else is trying to replicate that score somewhere on their roster. You should be trying to play two quarterbacks every single week, right? I know it's not going to happen because of bye weeks, because of injuries, because of your roster construction or bad luck, whatever it may be. But you need to be thinking about it a little differently now. How do I get two really good quarterbacks to start every single week? How do I position my roster for success going forward? And, the trade value of these quarterbacks should be extreme, right? So, like, if I go to Matt and I say, hey, like, I'd give you Bo Nix in the 5th overall pick for Jamar Chase, that really should be a conversation where it's like, shit, let me think about it. It's not just LOL, you're funny, right? I'm giving you a rookie quarterback who is guaranteed to be the starter in Denver for at least 4 more years, plus the 5th overall pick, who could be another quarterback or something. The value of the skill position player sort of decreases in this process because the quarterback scoring is more repetitive or more replicable, right? So Xander now is going to be able to play Baker Mayfield and Jordan Love. Okay, so instead of playing Van Jefferson as that last flex, he now can then play a quarterback who's likely going to get between 15 and 20 points with upside to more, right? It gives you more ways to build your team, right? Like if you wanted to trade for 4 really good starting quarterbacks and then use them as trade pieces, you are allowed to do that. If you want to load up on skill position guys and trade away your quarterbacks and just say, well, I really hope that, Russell Wilson and Kenny Pickett can get me by, well, that's your option as well. You have to play 1 QB. You don't have to play 2, but you should be wanting to play 2. It also makes it a little easier to tank in the sense of, hey, listen, like I don't have 2 playable quarterbacks, or I have 2 and I want to trade one away for assets, right? So like say Zach's team is really bad and he says, okay, well, I want to sell Jared Goff because I need, a young wide receiver. That should be a deal that everyone is interested in unless you literally have 2 top 8 quarterbacks. Like trying to get Jared Goff on your dynasty team, right? I mean, the guys, right? Like I hope that makes sense. But it's going to be an adjustment. There's going to be some bumps in the road, I'm sure. Probably some bad trades. I have the worst trade in the history of Grit, and then now that we're Superflex, it's even worse, right? That Josh Allen trade I made with Austin way back when. But I think it's something that is really good for the health of the league. It makes everybody more competitive. It's really easy, or not really easy, but it's a lot easier to kind of rebuild and think about rebuilding, where it's like, okay, well, my team's really bad. I'm going to trade away all of my quarterbacks for skill position, young guys, or draft picks. I'm going to use my draft pick to go get the top quarterback in the class and then rebuild from there. It's not just playing the lottery with a what receiver that's going to go in the top 10 is going to actually be good, which one's going to stink. Um, it kind of sucks. Like that was kind of the game that we were playing, and I want to make this league feel more competitive, more thought provoking, and not as much just lottery and luck involved. So, with that said, Superflex is now implemented. If you go into Sleeper right now, the Superflex is officially in there. You can put a quarterback in that spot if you want to see how your team looks. You can send offers. Um, you probably can't pay a high enough price for some of these top quarterbacks, but we see it every year. There's going to be great quarterback prospects. Nobody thought Jaden Daniels would be as good as he is so far. He's worth a lot now, right? So just try to look at your teams, try to think clearly about how you want to build it. Do you think your team is good enough to compete? Well, it might be. It's a lot easier to hide if you have bad running backs if you can field a really good receiving core and quarterback room. So I think it allows people to compete a little quicker. There should be more middle of the road teams that can actually compete with the bigger teams. Because if you can really win the quarterback position and say you have a Trevor Lawrence who gets 35 one week and you have a Jalen Hurts that gets 42, right? They both just go crazy in their games. Well, that's going to be 75 points that the other person's going to have to try and make up somewhere. And that's just from your quarterbacks. And then you got all your, other players as well. So I really hope that people are happy with this. And I think if you guys really think clearly about it, and hopefully some of what I said has made sense, but if you really think through it, I think it's really good for the league. Ideally, what I would like to do is next offseason, add either an additional flex because our rosters are so big. Everyone has players. Everyone knows what we're doing in Dynasty now. I don't think it's that hard to start 10 people. Right now it's a start 9, which is fine, but you're going to have a lot of very quality running backs and receivers on the bench every week. And maybe that's good for the trade market. I don't know. We'll see how this goes. It's kind of why I didn't want to do 2 major changes in one off season. Or discuss making 2 major changes. And then the other thing to think about is tight end premium. A lot of people play in these kind of leagues, 1.25 tight end premium, 1.5, even people playing 2 points per reception tight end premium. Basically what that means is if your tight end has 5 catches, it would be, a point and a half for every catch and then obviously if the guy scores a touchdown, he's going to have an amazing week. The point of those leagues is to make tight ends more playable in the flex spots, excuse me. And right now, basically, if you have, it doesn't matter how many good tight ends you have, you're only going to really want to play one. I mean, the only exception really would be if you had, 2 of the top 4 guys, right? If you had McBride and Brock Bowers or Laporta. There's not a lot of situations I can see where a team is wanting to play 2 tight ends currently. And hopefully this would give, or at least if we think about it, hopefully it would give more value to the middle of the road tight ends. It also makes the Brock Bowers of the world extremely valuable, maybe 101 in a dynasty kind of valuable. Just something to think about. No one's making a change today. I just wanted to bring that up, hopefully to provoke some thoughts. Okay. Now, what I want to do after discussing this is talk about a few things. Number one, the rookie draft. Goal is going to be 2 weeks after the season. Draft, I believe, is April the 27th, whatever that starts on Thursday night. So it'll be Thursday, Friday, Saturday draft. Hopefully 2 weeks after that, we can do our rookie draft. So somewhere mid-May is the goal. And obviously, if you want to trade your picks, start thinking about the rookie draft differently. I probably should bring that up too while we're talking about it. Quarterbacks now in this format are very, very worthy of being selected 101 in a rookie draft, right? Locking up your quarterback position for, 15 years if you hit on the guy. Shedeur Sanders is probably going to be, let's say he goes first overall. Well, in our league previously, he probably would have been either a early second round pick ish. I don't see a situation where he would have gone in a first round because he's not a running QB. I think it's a little different if it's a Caleb or a Jalen Daniels maybe, but now because he's a quarterback who's going to start and play every week. That value is extremely important to what you're trying to do with your team. If you had two QBs and you had the number one overall pick, well, I can stash him because somebody's going to want him. And I hope that people use this as a way to make more interesting trades and try to think about building their teams rather than just sit people on a bench and just say, well, the bad people are going to be, or the bad users in our league are never going to be able to recover. It should be easier for the worst teams to recover now and a little easier to think about team building. So anyways, okay. So time to transition here a little bit. What I wanted to do is also talk through my early rookie rankings for the draft. I'm going to have Jacob join me soon, and we're going to do a little back and forth on this, but I just want to share my rankings. So what I'll do now is share my screen to this one. Okay. And I hope that this is legible here. I guess I will see after. But, oh, wait, that's not the right one. Whoops. That was going to be my second thing. I'm going to share this one. Okay. So here is my initial stuff. I watched film on basically everybody you see here, done some initial scouting of my stuff with my grading system that I use personally. And here's kind of my initial thoughts on everybody. So I'll talk through it real quick. And I did make some notes. Let me pull out my phone here. All right, so let's talk through the quarterbacks. As you can see, I have Cam Ward as my number one right now. This is not a great quarterback class. Cam Ward in a lot of classes would probably be my QB3 or QB4. I just think I give him a shot to be great more than I give Shedeur, and I'll explain it. So my comp for Cam Ward, if you haven't really watched too much of him, is actually Ryan Fitzpatrick. And the reason is because he's kind of a gunslinger. He doesn't really play in structure very well. He has the talent to make every single throw. He likes to freestyle a lot. Biggest concerns with him is ball security. He's not really an interception thrower, but he had 8 fumbles this year. In college, his pocket or the strength of holding the ball in the pocket is really concerning. Something we've seen Anthony Richardson really struggle with in the pros as well. But that's something you have to be good at if you want to be a starting NFL QB. I think his upside is very Brett Favre, where it's like I could see this guy throwing 20 picks in a season just because of how he'll let it rip and trust his receivers, but also he's so talented. Like when you watch him throw, there's so many just wow plays with him, and I really like what I've seen from Cam Ward. I just don't it really scares me that this guy could literally be the number one overall pick. To me, this is somebody who I would love to take in the late 20s of a real life draft. I think he's genuinely more in the I don't know, where Kenny Pickett went, right? A middle first round, because he could be terrible. And just full transparency here, I have to put somebody first, right? The one good thing about Cam Ward, and if you don't know his story, he started out at Incarnate Word, D2 school, and then transferred to Washington State and then to Miami. But he actually has the all-time most starts for a quarterback in college football history. So this is a guy who's played a ton of football, and I think that's why I like his profile a little bit better than Shedeur. Is Cam Ward has played so much football. He's had this clutch gene forever. He had a couple comeback wins for Miami this year. The moment has never been too big for him. The lights are never too bright. I think if he goes to a team like the Giants, I don't think being in New York will scare him one bit or having the media all over him. He's just a calm, cool, and collected guy. And yeah. All right. So Shedeur, and I know everyone has their own opinions on him. I haven't really seen anybody be like, oh, Shedeur is going to be so much better than people realize. Everyone is, way too low on this guy. I can't believe people would talk about him not being the number one pick. I feel like a lot of people are just, it just feels like Shedeur is just, no one's excited by him. It's it kind of leaves a bad taste in people's mouth. My comp for him is Sam Darnold, right? And if you grimace a little bit at that, please remember that Sam Darnold was at one time the number 3 overall pick. I think it's very possible that you could see Shadur go 3rd overall as well. I've seen him mocked first. I have a really hard time buying that one. But his problems are the same as Sam Darnold, which is he holds the ball too long. He takes a ton of sacks, and he takes a lot of big hits that just aren't necessary. The Colorado offense was also kind of gimmicky, and it, sadly leads to a lot of just stuff that doesn't translate to the NFL very much. The one thing I will say about him is he's got a history of like running a real offense in a sense of like he was everything for that Colorado team. Dion kind of gave him the keys, and like I know it might not be a prototypical NFL offense, but the guy knows how to spread the ball around. He was like, I don't know, top 3 in college football in pass attempts. He's thrown a lot of footballs. His accuracy is his biggest strength. His biggest weakness is like, he's not a good athlete at all. And people see Shadur and they think he's going to be some great athlete. This guy is not a good athlete. I think he's probably closer to a 4.7 runner, like a Kirk Cousins, like a Sam Darnold, than he is like a scrambler. Even guys like CJ Stroud are much faster, even though they don't run. And it's like, the reason that doesn't translate to what the NFL is you have to be able to move and get off your spot if the pocket breaks down. And that's what Shadur struggles with the most. But yeah, those are the 2 guys I'll really highlight at quarterback. Jackson Dart's the other one. My Jackson Dart comp is Zach Wilson. And I actually think I like Jackson Dart more than consensus. I've seen some talk he could be a first-round pick. I've seen him mocked in the second round and some stuff that I've looked at. I really think he's going to go in the first round because I think people are going to fall in love with his talent. If you watch the Ole Miss Florida game, he had the horrible multi-interception fourth quarter that basically lost them that game and kept them out of the college football playoff. But it's really the only game of Jackson Dart's career that he like had this meltdown. I don't think that that's like a typical kind of performance from him. I think it's more of he just had a bad game. I think that's something that we can give some grace for. Jackson Dart's got all the talent in the world. He's a good athlete. His style of play is Bo Nixie, Zach Wilson-y, good thrower on the run, good off of his platform. It doesn't have to be some design play. Just with that Ole Miss offense, it's a lot of one read stuff. The ball, he knows where the ball is going before the snap is called, and he's somebody who I would love to see wait a year. Like, I don't know, like a team like I don't know, like if the Bills took him and he could watch Josh Allen for a year or something, like obviously that's not a great not a great example, but I don't know, maybe the Jets or something. Like he could watch Aaron Rodgers for a year, and then the next year it's going to be Jackson Dart time. I think that would make a lot of sense. I'm afraid of playing this guy early, and it's like every single time that somebody says I'm afraid of playing this guy early is usually the guys who bust. So I'm a little worried about that with Jackson Dart, but he is really young. He's 21 years old, or he'll be 21 on draft night, and I give him a chance because I really like his talent. The others there, Milroe and Quinn Ewers. Somebody has to be 4 and 5. I think both of these guys really suck, but somebody in the NFL is going to take Jalen Milroe in the second round. And remember, like Jalen Hurts was a second round pick. If Milroe ever can like figure out how to actually be a quarterback, I think he's going to be pretty good. His athleticism's off the charts. He runs like a running back, but he's just not a good QB. Right. So if you draft Jalen Milroe, I mean, you're really drafting a wildcat QB who like you hope can throw for 150 yards in the NFL. Cause I don't see it. Quinn Ewers is for being the number 1 overall recruit who played at 2 major programs at Ohio State and Texas. I just like, he does nothing that wows me. He does nothing that tells me he's a starter in the NFL. I think he's somebody who's going to go maybe in the 5th round of drafts in real life. I've seen him mocked in the first. I don't think he has the arm strength to go first. I don't think he has like the leadership or like the face of a franchise stuff to go that high. I don't think the NFL is really going to like him, and that might be a bad take, but I just I'm not seeing it. All right, so on to running backs, and I will read word for word what I have for Ashton Jeanty, and I'll let everybody else make their own opinions here, but this is just my list, right? Don't hold me to this. This is January. This will change a lot by April, I'm sure, but all right, here's what I have for Ashton Jeanty. Bulldozer and twitchy. He's going to go in the top 20 in real life. I don't see the stardom aspect that others do. Was initially a 3-star recruit, which is a red flag for running backs. However, he dominated and can handle the workload. He's elusive, and the yards after contact are off the chart. And it was all against Mountain West teams, to be fair. He's a capable receiver, wasn't asked to do it much, but I see a lot more of Kenneth Walker than I do a Bijan level fantasy running back. Lots of good, lots of potential duds. His landing spot could be big for him. And does he play third downs in the NFL? I don't know. For a guy who's probably going to go in the top 20 in real life because this draft overall is not great, especially on offense, I don't know if I see this fantasy monster that we knew that Bijan, Zeke Elliott, Fournette, McCaffrey, all those other running backs that went really high were going to be. Ashton JT is an okay receiver. He just wasn't really asked to do it much. And this guy is 5'8.5", and he's like 215 pounds. He's not a down. He's not like a burner or anything either, and that really worries me. Sorry, dog has a squeaker toy. Okay, but I actually see more Kenneth Walker, and maybe a more twitchy Kenneth Walker. I don't know if that's fair. I mean, Kenneth Walker was a top 40 pick in the NFL. Like, I don't think that that's some derogatory comment. It's just like, I am lower on consensus than Genty. I still like him. I just don't know if he's like this elite level guy. All right, Amarian Hampton. When this guy was playing as a freshman, people thought he was like an otherworldly athlete. And this year we saw him get run down multiple times on like big plays. I think he is a great runner. I think this guy's going to be a starting running back in the NFL. He's just not the explosive athlete that a lot of people thought. He just doesn't really have a third gear. He's like enough to get through the hole, make the first guy miss, but he's just like a, get what you get kind of running back. I think coaches will like him. He does everything pretty well. He's a good pass blocker. Pro Football Focus loves him. I think he'll grade out really well in a lot of stuff. I think he's probably going to be solidly RB2 in this class. My comp for him is like a Tank Bigsby plus. We saw some good stuff from Tank Bigsby this year. He's just a very solid runner, had some big plays. Just isn't the athlete to be that like number one, like top 12 fantasy running back kind of style. That's kind of my worry with Amarian Hampton. All right, so next I have Caleb Johnson. Now, Caleb Johnson, he has the kind of profile that fantasy managers love, which is the absolute every down workhorse, can catch the ball, can be the center of an offense, physical runner, short yardage runner, 220-pound bruiser. He's faster than you'd think he is too, just looking at his body type. My fear here is that, is he a James Conner level athlete? Now, James Conner is an absolute, bulldozer himself. I don't know if Caleb Johnson is quite that. I think he's very good, very shifty, just a very solid NFL player. He's going to be able to take hits and be able to continue to be productive, guys who get better as the game goes along kind of style. I have for him, my comp is like the upside of a Le'Veon Bell. I don't know about the fantasy impacts of that, but Le'Veon Bell is not a good athlete, not fast, but he did everything really well. Good receiver, got the most out of it, patient runner, very solid player. My downside for him is, could he just be Tyler Algier? Like, is he just not that good of an athlete who's just a very solid college running back, gets the pros, and he's going to stick on a roster for some time, but he's just not really somebody you're ever playing in fantasy? That's kind of my fear with Caleb Johnson. I think he might run like genuinely like a 4.65, like watching his tape. If he runs like a 4.65, like I think he's going to go from like a second round pick in real life to like a sixth round, because that's just too slow. So that's my fear. All right, Trayvon Henderson. This is the one I'm most excited for. This is my, I don't know if I can call him a sleeper, but a guy I'm way higher on than consensus. I wanted to put him higher than Caleb Johnson, but like I just know Caleb Johnson is going to be one of these guys who's on an NFL roster for 10 years. My Trayvon Henderson comp is Tajay Spears or a light Arian Foster. I know that's a big comp to throw out. Great receiver, twitchy, and just explosive runner. I mean, this guy is like shot out of a cannon, like Chris Johnson level fast. I think he's going to run like a 4.34, 4.35. 5-star recruit, big program, multiple 1,000-yard rushing seasons. can take hits, can run between the tackles, can make guys miss in space. He doesn't really do anything poorly. I just don't know if this is a situation of, does the NFL view him like that, or does the NFL see him as like a third down back who they just want to get involved a couple times a game? If he's given the opportunity, and maybe it will take an injury, right? Like we saw with Chase Brown this year, it's like all it took was like the guys in front of him getting hurt, and he clearly can handle the workload. That might be what happens to Travion Henderson. But if this guy gets a shot, like I genuinely think he could be great. If the NFL likes him and he's a top 60 pick, which is where I would think he would go, um, I really think there's a shot this guy could be like he could shoot all the way up to 105, 106 in rookie drafts. Um, could it be a Jalen Wright situation too, where it's like this guy really needs multiple injuries in front of him to ever be relevant? We can think a guy's talented all we want, but it doesn't matter if the team doesn't play him. So want to bring him up. All right, so on to running backs, and I will stop sharing this screen and share this one. So here's my wide receiver list. Again, this is where I'm at right now. Ted McMillan at 1. Ted to me is like a 6'5" DeAndre Hopkins, a more twitchy Mike Williams, Drake London-esque. He is a big body contested catch winner. He is a better athlete and probably a lot faster than people give him credit for. Again, the draft range for Tet, I think, is probably anywhere from the Patriots at 4, like 4th overall in real life, to like maybe 11, 12 in real life. He's going to be the top receiver drafted. Absolutely. He's not as physical as a Mike Evans. He's not as fast as a Nico Collins, but he is good at everything. He's just not a great separator down the field, but he is so great at winning contested catches and being that big physical guy. And when you're 6'5.5", I mean, he was listed Arizona at 6'6". People say he's really 6'5", but I mean, he's really that tall. And he is like skinny and lanky, and he's got the kind of build that is exciting. I think he's going to be a matchup nightmare for a lot of corners in the NFL. I just don't know if he can separate. And again, that Arizona team was really bad, and he just did all he could for him. So if that happens, if he goes to the Patriots at 4, I think Tet's going to be locked in 102, 103 in rookie drafts. He's like the only receiver I can see on here that could be maybe a superstar if everything falls, his way. But yeah, Matthew Golden just declared for the NFL draft about a week ago. I didn't think he was going to go pro. Was originally a Houston Cougar, transferred to Texas this last year. And if you've been watching any of the Texas last couple of weeks, I mean, he's been just lighting it up. 6 foot, 185, kind of that Garrett Wilson body type. That's kind of my comp for him. I'm a huge fan of Matthew Golden. I think this guy's going to be really good. Really like strong hands, like physical, but like shifty receiver. He's somebody I really want to dig into more, but my initial thoughts are that this guy's going to be a first round pick, and I jumped him all the way up to 2 in my rankings. I think he's got the talent to be like the clear second best receiver in this class. Emeka Egbuka. I hate to bring up another slot receiver from Ohio State and tell you I like him, but I'm going to do it again. I think Egbuka is just going to be the Tyler Lockett, the Cooper Kupp, just the slot guy that gets open, gets you 5 for 58 every week. I think he's a day 1 starter in the NFL. His draft range is probably around pick 20 to pick 30 in real life. I think he'll be a first round pick. Remember, this guy had 1,000 yards as a sophomore at Ohio State, playing with like the Monstars on that team. All the other first round picks and NFL contributors, and this guy had 1,000 yards. I mean, I get the team's good, but he proved he could do it. There's no real weakness in his game other than can he win on the boundary. The one thing I'm worried about for him is the testing. If he runs anything below 4.55, perfectly fine. I don't know if he will. I think he could be closer to 4.6, but he is so shifty, so good at getting open. Absolute 5-star recruit too. The top speed is really my only question, but he can do everything really well. And yeah, I feel safe about him, and he's the last guy I feel safe about. Luther Burden. This guy will be a topic of discussion for the fantasy community for basically the next 4 months. You will see a lot of people maybe with Luther Burden as their number one overall receiver, and a lot of people with Luther Burden is like a third round grade on him. 38% of his yards in college came from behind the line of scrimmage, passes caught behind the line, bubble screens, etc. My comp for him is more Zay Flowers, how Zay is used in the NFL, but Zay in college was actually used way more down the field. They've kind of changed his role as he got to the Ravens, and obviously he's really good at it, right? He's a Pro Bowl slot receiver, but that's kind of how Luther Burden is used at Missouri. Luther Burden was the number 3 overall recruit a couple years ago. Didn't do much as a freshman. Broke out last year, and then this year had a down year. Theo Weiss, his teammate, actually had more yards than him at Missouri. But Luther's style of play is like Zay Flowers, Debo-E, physical, shifty, smaller guy that is just tough to tackle, tough to bring down. He has the pedigree to be great. I just don't know how he is as a route runner, and that really worries me, right? If he lands in a spot that's like, hey, go get open for the Raiders, I think he's going to struggle. If he goes to a team like the 49ers, I mean, I don't think they'll take a receiver, but somewhere where it's like, I don't know, take the Rams, right? You put Luther Burden in the slot for the Rams, and I think that's a really exciting fit. He's just somebody I'm going to be watching. I think landing spot really matters for him. I just don't see, I don't think I see the upside for being like a top 12 fantasy wide receiver ever. I'm pretty sure Luther Burden will be a first round pick in real life. I've seen a lot of people down on him. There's a lot of red flags in his profile of like the stuff that is of nightmares. The Jalen Reagor profile is basically a photocopy of what Luther Burns looks like. But these are the kind of guys that, we might miss on 4 of them, and then the 5th one is the hit. So I'm not discounting Luther Burden completely. I feel really nervous with him, and he's the only guy on the list so far at receiver I feel nervous about. And then the last guy I'll highlight here is Jalen Royals. Jalen Royals is a early declare 21-year-old from Utah State. If you never heard of Jalen Royals, there's probably a good reason for that, but 6 foot 185, Utah State. This is a guy who does everything really well. My comp for him is Will Fuller. I think he's going to run low 4.3s, 4.33, 4.34. Led college football in catches 20 yards or more down the field. He is somebody they designed the entire offense around at Utah State. He could handle it. And I think he's somebody who I think the NFL is really going to like him because his where he is really good is something that's very different than the rest of this class. Notice how I haven't told you there's a lot of deep ball threats, a lot of like Jamison Williams types. Jalen Royals has kind of been that mold of like this guy could be a game breaker potentially. And if you watch his highlights, he has some really impressive catches, impressive plays. I think this guy actually is pretty good. I thought he was going to be one of my deep sleepers, and all of a sudden I've seen him on mocks in the second round now, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess I was right here. But Jalen Royals is somebody who I think is going to go in the late second round, early third in real life, but I give him a good chance. I think this guy could be one of those where it's like, Amon-Ra St. Brown, we look up and it's just like, why was this guy a third, fourth round pick again? He's that kind of special. Other guys on here, just real quick, I'll hit on Restrepo, slot receiver at Miami, will be a day one contributor. You hope he goes somewhere he can play. He's not a boundary receiver at all. Isaiah Bond is somebody who has more talent than maybe everybody on this list. He just has not put it all together. But if you just want to bet on somebody getting better as they go to the NFL, Isaiah Bond is your guy. Not great hands, but as shifty as anybody. I think he could be the fastest receiver in the class too. Isaiah Bond played at Alabama and Texas. Jalen Noel from Iowa State, ton of big plays there. Did it against some weak competition. I don't know what he is in the NFL. I don't think he's a great athlete, but I think he's going to go third round. So he's somebody at least to be, have on your radar. Alec Ayomanor, guy who didn't play wide receiver until he got to college at Stanford. And then, of course, if you've ever seen the game or remember the game where he ripped Travis Hunter apart, uh, go look that up if you haven't. He put 200 and I think 90 yards on Travis Hunter. Um, but yeah, Ellick's great. I'm really worried he's going to run like a 4.62. I think he's more of like a wide receiver tight end hybrid than he is just a boundary receiver. And then Trey Harris last. Trey Harris is like the prototypical good college receiver who I don't think translates. He's not a great receiver. He's not a great separator. He put up a bunch of yards at Ole Miss and a bunch of one-read games, and he's a Furman merchant. I mean, if you go look at the box scores, all of his best games were against the rinky-dinks of the worlds, the Middle Tennessee States. I just don't think he's very special, and he's one of these guys that's just going to, I don't know, a Xavier Hutchinson who just blends into the background. He'll be in the league for a while. He'll have a catch here and there. I just don't think he's anything special. And I guess while I'm here, I should probably mention Travis Hunter. If Travis Hunter plays offense, I mean, he's the number one receiver in the class. I mean, there's no question about it. He's over Tet for me. If Travis plays offense, I think he's going to be full-time defense and have some kind of gimmicky routes. So for the time being, I'm leaving him out of all of my mocks, out of all of my lists, because I just don't trust, what teams will do with him. Now, if we get word that Travis Hunter is going to be a full-time wide receiver, I think he's like the 101 in rookie drafts because I think he's that special as like an athlete, as a talent. But unfortunately, I just think he's going to play a lot of defense in the pros. I think he's going to have some gimmicky stuff, kind of how a Devin Hester would have. But he's just way better at that. Maybe Travis plays 15 offensive plays a week and he gets the ball on 5 or 6 of them, sort of thing. But I don't want to get too excited about him as an actual fantasy asset yet. And tight ends, I know everyone's talking about Tyler Warren right now. I have watched both him and Colston Loveland. I watched Colston Loveland today. That guy is insane. If Michigan had any kind of offense throwing the ball, Colston Loveland would have been, I think he'd be like a top 10 pick. Just a monster of a man who's probably going to run a 4.6. I mean, he's running away from corners and safeties, and it looks like he's a foot taller than them. I think he's a true 6'6". He's built like a Tyler Eifert, like a Hunter Henry, but he's more athletic than those guys. I think he's going to test really well. Other thing about him is he's still only 20 years old. He will be drafted at 20 and turn 21 in rookie minicamp. I mean, if you're ever going to bet on a tight end, just even if he's not great as a rookie, just somebody to stash away who's going to continue to get better. I think Colston Loveland is at least right now the clear one for me. Tyler Warren at 2. The profiles that scared me the most and have been the biggest landmines in fantasy have been the guys who don't do anything and then as a 23-year-old senior burst onto the scene. Well, Tyler Warren did that, but he was so talented it makes you wonder, why did it take so long? And you got to remember, Brenton Strange and Theo Johnson were ahead of him at Penn State, so he learned from some really good tight ends. Is he better than both of those guys, clearly, who were both second-round picks, by the way? I don't know. I like him. I just don't think I like him more than Loveland, and which is crazy because I think Tyler Warren right now is projected really early in drafts. They also list him at 6'6". I don't know if he's actually 6'6", because when you watch him in Loveland, Loveland seems way bigger, faster, better athlete. I don't know. I need to do some more research on Tyler Warren to figure out what other people are saying because I currently just don't see it. I think he's solid, but nothing too special right now, at least for me. Harold Fannin. You ever want Jonnu Smith 2.0 or Jordan Matthews if he actually could play tight end? Like Bowling Green had the entire offense built around this guy. I think he is a special talent and a special player. If the NFL sees him that way, he's going to rocket either to number 1 or number 2 on my tight end board and potentially could even be a first-round rookie pick. I just don't know how the NFL sees him. If the NFL sees him as a tight end and he goes in the top 50 picks in the NFL draft, I think he's locked in first-round rookie pick. If the NFL thinks he's more of a third, fourth-round talent, I don't know. That's why I have him here at 3 right now. I don't really know what to do with him. Aronde Gadsden, tight end, wide receiver hybrid from Syracuse, a huge talent, but I think he's probably going to go fifth, sixth round. I don't think he's going to go earlier than that. He had 2 major knee injuries in college, or he would be higher. But keep your eye on him. He's somebody who I'd love to throw on a taxi squad and watch for a year. And Mason Taylor is your typical big body tight end who played at a big school, very productive. No real red flags in his profile. He will be an NFL player. He will be good. Think Austin Hooper. Think who's the guy for the Panthers? Tommy Trimble. Think like that. But yeah. All right. So that is my list for quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, and tight ends, at least of now. So that's my January 16th list. I'm going to stop sharing the screen and then show you my rookie draft. This is it was supposed to be a little surprise at the end here, but did not go that way. So right now, okay, here we go. Right now, my rookie draft for a Superflex league. This is this is not, this is just best player available. What I would do if the draft was today. Ashton Jeanty 101, Tet McMillan 102, Shadur Sanders 103, Luther Burden 104, Cam Ward 105, Tyler Warren 106. Again, this is what I think the consensus will be, because I think Warren's going to be drafted ahead of these guys, and I think Shadur is going to go ahead of Cam Ward. Not saying I agree, but I just think this is what consensus is. Tyler Warren 106, Matthew Golden 107, Marion Hampton 108, Jackson Dart 109. I think Jackson Dart, if he goes first round, I'm just saying. Mecca Buka 110, Travion Henderson 111, Colston Loveland 112, Jalen Milrow 201. If Milrow gets drafted with any kind of shot to play, like he's just fantasy gold because he's going to run so much. I really don't think 201's crazy, even if I think he sucks. So Harold Fandon 202, Caleb Johnson 203, Jalen Royals 204, Quinn Ewers 205, Restrepo 206, Quinshon Judkins 207, Devin Neal 208, Cam Scadabo 209, Isaiah Bond 210, Ollie Gordon 211, and Eliki Omenor at 212. All right. Well, thanks for listening to me rant. Again, I'm going to have Jacob on here too, and I want to have some debate back and forth about players' profiles. I'm going to definitely come with more stats next time, but this is just my initial stuff I've been doing watching players. Wanted to record something and get back in front of the camera, and hopefully you guys have some thoughts here. Hope you watch the whole thing, and if you do, leave a like. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.